Hey everyone, it's Justin again. This help video is going to go over how to create the flowchart for the second proof within additional practice for the lines and angles proofs part 2 lesson. So this proof says, given that angle A is congruent to angle B, and angle A and angle C are supplementary, prove that angle B and angle C are supplementary. There's no provided picture, and you actually don't even need one to complete this proof, but you can always draw one for yourself. However, you need to be careful when you're making your own drawing. For example, look at these two drawings. In both drawings, I have a known congruence between angles A and B, just like the problem tells me. However, in drawing 1, I have a bunch of other relationships that I was not given. For example, angles A and B are vertical angles here, and angles A and C and B and C are linear pairs. I cannot use these relationships because they were not given to me in the problem. You always want to avoid creating relationships that you weren't given when you have to make your own drawing, because it could cause you to be confused and make statements that you cannot back up. Instead, take the safe route and make your drawing like drawing 2. Here, all 3 of my angles are separate, so I'm not going to make any inaccurate statements about how they might be related. Your drawing may look different from this depending on how you've drawn your angles, but they should be 3 separate angles that do not share any rays. Now that I have my drawing, I can get started. I've rearranged things slightly to give myself more room for my flowchart. Ultimately, I know that my last statement is going to be that angles B and C are supplementary. The only way for me to state that is if the measure of angle B plus the measure of angle C is 180 degrees. Since we're reaching toward being able to write an equation, I should turn all of my given information into equations. First, we know that angles A and C are supplementary because we were given that in the problem. In equation form, this would be that the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle C equals 180 degrees. My reason for this statement would just be the supplementary definition. In another branch, I have that angle A is congruent to angle B because we were given this. Then we'll move from congruence to an equality to say that the measure of angle A is equal to the measure of angle B by the congruence definition for angles. At this point, I can see that I actually already have all of the information that I need. I can bring these two statements together to say that the measure of angle B plus the measure of angle C is equal to 180 degrees by just substituting measure of angle B for the measure of angle A. I'm allowed to do this because of the substitution property of equality. I can also now see that my reason for this last statement is just the supplementary definition. Let me number these bubbles to make them easier to talk about. When you transfer your flowchart into a 2-column proof, make sure that you keep your statements in a logical order. Statements 5 and 6 have to go last and must go in that order. Here are all of the possible logically correct orders for your statements. If you had already started this proof before watching the video, go back and correct your work. If you were unable to start on your own before, you may want to take a break and come back to this later to make sure that you can recreate this proof on your own. Good luck, and I'll see you next time.